I'm going to close our kind of presentation on these three main topics by giving some high-level information about adaptation that touches on many of the other elements that have already been discussed. Just gives a little bit more detail. So next slide, please. Adaptation action and kind of integrated adaptation action can happen on a number of levels, as we know. Examples from earlier in the presentation included individual and family issues. So how prepared or how susceptible are people individually? And that gets into some issues at the next levels. What's happening in the immediate environment surrounding homes? Both issues of safety, also issues of comfort. Is the home located on a street where there's some shading, and so if you don't have an air conditioner, you are protected in a way. And of course, street trees. That's going to impact those issues of shade and of temperature, urban heat wave effects at a localized level. And then the next level is kind of beyond just your immediate street, but the neighborhood, the community that you live in. How is it designed? How walkable or bikeable is it? Are there street trees for your walk, maybe to a transit stop or to other kind of amenities in your neighborhood? And so what's the kind of the comfort level as you move throughout your community? And then of course there's policies and plans at a city level and a regional level that impact these other levels. So I'm getting at the importance of nothing can kind of be seen at just one level, but the integration of how these different levels work together will affect adaptation and will affect ultimately health risk. And then finally, state and federal policies. There's a lot happening in California on climate action planning, and that does have effects, down the chain. So adaptation essentials. This is kind of kicking off the discussion that I think we're all going to have as a group. But some key adaptation essentials. So to summarize kind of the model, the framework that we've presented here, we can incorporate information about impact, climate impact and exposure, along with vulnerability assessment information for long-term adaptation planning, to inform long-term adaptation planning. And so that can be kind of high level and complicated, involve a lot of different pieces, but to try to make it kind of as localized and tailored to the community at hand, to break down the intervention strategies at a local level and also group the impacts that then inform the adaptation measures by strategy, kind of as small as possible. And so although you have kind of this breaking down, you also have a need for coordination and integration. So integration across different sectors, urban forestry and public health, for example, as well as collaboration across municipalities and across these different levels that I just mentioned in the previous slide. So let me give an example to kind of kick off, again, the group discussion on how kind of information about these areas can help drive adaptation planning. So looking at how climate impacts and public health vulnerability information specifically can inform some issues around urban forestry intervention actions. So we can think about, given the fact, for example, that although maybe overall precipitation levels may not change dramatically in our region, we are going to see some kind of interannual fluctuations and variability in precipitation. So less precipitation coming as snow and more as rainfall, more flooding. Longer periods where we might be seeing drought. So one thing that we can look for is native trees that are more efficient at sequestering carbon and conserving water, so that are more drought resistant. We can also look at what trees and vegetation is most efficient at providing shade and reducing the urban heat island effects. We can then take information that we presented earlier in the presentation on what areas are most impacted, where are the most kind of disadvantaged communities that may have kind of the least ability to adapt, and focus adaptation measures in those areas and at a local level. So when we're talking about neighborhood design issues, focusing, for example, on transit stops, other areas where people congregate, and where vulnerable populations live at the street level, local level. And then in general, climate change will exacerbate some existing conditions. We're already resource strapped, and so it's going to be important to just continuously be more efficient with our limited resources. So thinking about what trees will minimize maintenance needs while ensuring resources into the future. So with that, I'm going to now kick off the discussion portion. The goal of this, next slide please, the goal of this portion of the event, which is the last thing standing in our way for lunch, where we'll have more informal information sharing. Our objectives here are twofold. One, we want to share information about current adaptation activities between different agencies, between different nonprofits, across different jurisdictions, municipalities in this region. And then I think our hope is that some of this discussion with folks that may not always be in the same room together, folks from public health and folks from the urban forestry community, for example, that would maybe get some ideas going for further collaborations and integrated strategies.